In this section, we are going to talk about perimeter security. So the perimeter security section, again, we're working from the outside in as we're doing the survey part of the assessment. And perimeter security basically covers fences, gates, a little bit of entry control as to how you get into the campus, although there is a separate entry control section that gets more into biometrics, identification, IDs and stuff. The perimeter security is more talking about fences and gates, how somebody can access the campus from the outside. So like all the other sections, you can either click on the perimeter security button on the homepage, or you can go to assessment and then click perimeter security. Now, like the other sections, we start with a section background, which is we want to answer the questions about the things that this section has. So in this case, we're asking whether or not the school has a perimeter fence. Now, if it has more than one perimeter fence, you would just select this, and it'll ask you to add the second one at the end of the first fence. So we're going to say, yes, we have a perimeter fence. Does the school have a vehicle gate? Okay, so you can have a fence without a gate. So in a lot of times you do have a gate. So we're going to say, yes, we have a gate. Now the next thing is the perimeter as a potential high-speed avenue of approach. And a lot of people don't understand exactly what that means. Think about it if your school is on, let's say, a dead-end street, and it is a straight street, and cars can get up to, let's say, 30 miles an hour and ram into the school grounds. So in order to know if you have a potential high-speed avenue of approach, you kind of just look at the map and you see, is there any way for a vehicle to really get up to ramming speed before it gets to the perimeter of the school? Now, we also talk about high-speed avenue of approach inside the campus areas, where we're talking about maybe you have a playground and making sure that there's no way for a car to ram into the playground. But in this case, we are actually talking about the potential high-speed avenue of approach for the campus in general. Is there any way to ram into the campus? So I'm going to say, yes, we have one of those. Is the perimeter covered by surveillance cameras? I'm going to say yes, so that we see those questions. And then, is the perimeter illuminated? So do you have lighting that lights up the perimeter of the campus in the off hours or in the dark hours? Now, this is not nearly as important if school is never in session or children aren't on campus when it's dark. But if you answered some of the early general description questions that you do have students on campus when it is dark, then the perimeter being illuminated is an issue. So we're going to say, yes, the perimeter is illuminated. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click Save and Reload. And like in the other sections, we now have sections for each of the significant areas that we added in the section background. So now I am going to start with the section overview questions. Now these are the questions that you're going to be asked even if you answer all of these no. So I'm going to hit show questions. And a lot of this has to do with making sure you're detecting people who get on school grounds. So how confident are you that an unauthorized person entering the campus during school hours would be detected before reaching the school? So if you have a fence around the school, you might be more highly confident than if you don't. And so I'm going to say we're highly confident. Are all perimeter entrances staffed by law enforcement or staff during student arrival? Again, we're going to say yes here. Are staff, volunteers, or law enforcement officers patrolling the perimeter during student arrival? And I'm going to say yes. And then, is there perimeter signage, for example, designating that it is a school property and directing visitors to the entrance and notifying visitors of video surveillance coverage? And I'm going to say yes. So some of these questions are really more about the management. So if you've got video surveillance systems, you do want to notify visitors that you have video surveillance. That in a lot of cases will just stop people from doing things. The video surveillance is now more of a deterrent than finding out what happened later. So those are the section overview questions. And so now I'm going to go into the next section, which is the perimeter fence. So we set up here that we have a perimeter fence. So now I'm going to ask questions about the fence. So first question, is the perimeter fence designed as a barrier or mostly decorative? So if you've got a chain link fence, maybe you've got spikes on the top of it or or whatever. Is it something that is designed to stop somebody from getting into the campus, or is it something that, it's a picket fence and somebody can just jump right over it? So I'm going to say the fence is a barrier. Now, let's select a statement that describes the fence. So 100% of the campus is enclosed and 100% of all the outdoor areas are enclosed. Or less than 100% of the facility is enclosed, but things like the playground and that kind of stuff, they're enclosed. 100% of the facility is enclosed, but not all the assets are enclosed. And less than 100% of the facility is enclosed, and less than 100% of the assets are enclosed. So if what you have is a fence that's just the outside and you don't have things like fences around the playground and stuff, you're going to say this one down here. 100% of the facility is enclosed, but less than 100% of the assets are enclosed. So if you've got a fence that you don't have a perimeter fence, but you have fences around or you have part of a perimeter fence and you have fences around the assets, that would be the second one. And if you have 100% of the facility enclosed and 100% of these outdoor area assets enclosed, that's the top one. So I'm going to say this third one down. We've got 100% of the facility is enclosed by a fence, but we've not enclosed all the assets. Okay, now let's talk about the type of fences. So we have a chain link that is just an anti-climb. And the anti-climb fences, you're not going to see kids climbing the fence. Standard chain link aluminum steel, that's the one I'm going to select. Then we have all these other kind of fences, a concrete fence, a brick and mortar, a steel, wrought iron. Some of these actually, if you're talking about a brick and mortar fence, yes, it is a barrier, but it is also decorative. So a lot of these other fences are more decorative than they are keeping somebody out. Okay, now let's indicate the height of the fence. So if we have a fence that's less than 5 feet, that's definitely not as effective as if we have a fence that's greater than 15 feet. That's not a usual thing. That's an expensive fence. So let's just say we have a fence that is 7 to 15 feet. Now let's look at the base of the fence. Is it anchored, meaning that you can't get underneath it, you can't push your way underneath it, or is it not anchored? A couple of reasons for this is if somebody crashes into it with a vehicle, a not anchored fence is going to give away a lot more than an anchored fence. Now, if it's a concrete brick or mortar wall, then that's definitely a different kind of fence, but we're going to say it's anchored. Okay, do you have outriggers like barbed wire or razor wire? Okay, it's an elementary school, so I'm going to say no in this case. Is the perimeter fence clear zone on the interior, the exterior, or both? Okay, so what the clear zone is free of, you want to have an area of the fence that is kind of an open area. So once you get over the fence, you're not immediately into an alleyway. The clear zone is the open area either on one side of the fence or both sides of the fence. So in this case, we're going to say that we have a clear zone on both the interior and the exterior. Now, next, can the security force observe the perimeter fence without obstruction? Now, we have not asked any questions about the security force yet, so there's a possibility there is no security force assigned to the facility. So, or there is a facility force, a security force, but they're not responsible for monitoring the fence. So we're going to say that the security force can observe the perimeter fence. Okay, is the area free of objects and structures that would aid in traversing the fence? So is there a big tree that just the kids or a villain can climb up a tree and jump over the fence? Are there barrels? Is there a shed? We're going to say yes, the area is free of objects. Now, if we have multiple perimeter fences and they're different, we can add another area of this type by selecting that. Okay, next is the perimeter high-speed avenue of approach. This is what I described earlier, which is a way for people to get their car up to speed and crash it into the perimeter of the facility. So let's look at the questions there. Okay, estimate the highest speed a vehicle can travel while approaching the school perimeter directly. That means they're taking a running start at it. So even if you have an approach, but a normal car can't even get up to 20 miles per hour, well, that's different than if a car can get up to 40 miles an hour while it's approaching the school perimeter. So I'm going to say less than 20 miles per hour. Okay, where does the high-speed avenue of approach terminate? Because if the high-speed avenue of approach terminates at the vehicle entrance, that's way different, because now when you're ramming the perimeter and you get through the fence, you're actually into a vehicle entrance. So is the high-speed avenue of approach terminating at a vehicle entrance? Is it terminating at a pedestrian entrance? Or is it a place other than an entrance? So it just happens to, yes, there is a high-speed avenue of approach, but it's either going to run into a fence or it's going to run into a field. So we're going to say that it is a vehicle entrance. Now, does the school have barriers to mitigate this high-speed avenue of approach? And we're going to say yes. So you might have bollards, you might have trees, you might have something that has been put in place so that even if the vehicle can get up to 40 miles an hour, it's got something in its way before it crashes into the facility. The next question is an active barrier employed? And you don't see that as much in schools, things like gates with a drop arm or a wedge or something where, like during the school hours, you've got a barrier that can like raise up, and then in non-school hours it's lowered. It's an electronically controlled barrier. And I'm going to say yes because there are some additional questions that are asked if you have an active barrier. So is the barrier system controlled through a network connection? So otherwise, if your network is down, does your barrier still work? So we're going to say yes, it does. Is the barrier system ID actuated or connected to a physical access control system, which is also called a PACS? So if this is part of your entry control, so maybe you have a gate that has a drop arm that, let's say students or faculties, they come up and they swipe a card, and then that card is part of it's ID actuated, which means an ID is what flips the arm up. Or is it connected to a physical access control system where there might be a guard who can open the barrier from remotely? So we're going to say yes, because if we're going to have an active barrier, it's probably going to be something like an ID actuated barrier. Okay, can the barriers be remotely controlled? This is what I just kind of said, where maybe you've got guards or security force that is monitoring the VSS, and they can either put down or raise up the gate arm from remotely. So I'm going to say yes. Can any of the barrier components communicate wirelessly? So is this a wireless network that is letting your security staff control the gate? So we're going to say yes on that. And then, is the barrier system integrated through a security system application? And we're going to say yes on that. Okay, so those are the questions related to the high-speed avenue of approach. So I'm going to hide those questions, and we're going to go on to the next section, which is vehicle gates. So in the vehicle gates, the first question is really what kind of gate is it? Is it a hydraulic wedge? Is it a hydraulic drop arm? Is it a roller or slide gate? Those are the ones that kind of come in from the left or the right, and they're on wheels. I mean, is it a swing gate that kind of like opens outward or opens inward? Is it a drop arm, meaning it's almost like it looks like a railroad crossing? It's an arm that comes down. Are they movable bollards, like something that you roll out like big drums that you would put in place? And then, or it's open, there is no gate. Now, you did actually say you were going to have a gate. That's why this question was asked. So odds are you're not going to select open, no gate. So in this case, we're going to say that we have a swing gate. Okay, are there any enhancements present on the vehicle gate? I don't know what this blank one is, but we'll take care of that. Is it crash rated for vehicle penetration? So if somebody crashes into your gate, is their car going to get destroyed and they're not going to get through? Does it have privacy screening? Is there coiled barbed wires? Are there spikes? Are there razored wires? or are there no enhancements? So we're just going to say, in this case, actually we'll say there's just no enhancements. We just have a standard gate. The next is the construction of the vehicle gate. Is it chain link? Is it chain link anti-climb? So let's say you have a roller gate and it's pretty much part of the fence. It might be steel, wrought iron, wood, or plastic. And we're just going to say this is a chain link vehicle gate. Indicate the height of the vehicle gate. So we'll say it's 5 to 6 feet. Is it staffed by a security force? Okay, this is kind of the same question we had before. You can say yes or no, but we might say no. There is no security staff present at the school. So you could say no, but it's not because the security staff doesn't want to monitor it or you don't want the security staff to monitor. It's no because there is no security staff at the school. So we're going to say yes, it's monitored. Is the vehicle gate clearly visible by surveillance cameras? It's no if you don't have any surveillance cameras, but it's also no if you can't see it with the security cameras that you have. So we're going to say it is clearly visible. Is it locked when it's not in session? I've seen a lot of cases where they do have a gate, but the gate's actually not locked, and somebody could just come up with their car and open the vehicle gate. And so we're going to say yes, it's locked. Is the gate locked during school hours that are not drop off and pickup time? So it's kind of, is the school kind of locked is this gate locked when the school's in session? So we're going to say yes on that. Okay, now if we have multiple gates, we can do the same thing where we click add another area of this type, and this would allow us to add another vehicle gate. But I'm not going to do that at this point. We're going to say we have one vehicle gate into our area. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to answer the question about the surveillance camera, and we're going to answer the question in the context of perimeter security. So we're not going to be asking a lot of questions about what kind of cameras you have. We're just going to ask about things like this. Are the video surveillance system in use signs posted at the facility perimeter? So if you've got a surveillance camera, let's notify people and tell them it's there. It will make them not want to do some of the things they might want to do. So we're going to say yes. How much of the perimeter is covered by VSS? This is actually a redundant question. You kind of answer. Sometimes we have redundant questions and you answer them anyway because they are used to populate different sections of the report or different parts of the report. So in this case, we're going to say it's 100% of the perimeter. And does anything interfere with VSS observations? Would mean, do you have any blind spots or concealed areas? And I'm going to say no to that. Okay, so that is the section on surveillance cameras. And now we want to look at perimeter illumination questions. Okay, now do ordinances or laws exist that prevent illumination of some or all of the parking areas or perimeters? So are you in an area that's got lighting control so you can't light up the you can't light up the parking lot in the dark areas, and so it doesn't really matter at that point if you want to light it up, you're just not allowed to. So we're going to say no to that. Does landscaping hinder the illumination and thus create shadows or concealed areas? We would hope that would be no, but we're going to say no. So then describe the general uniformity of illumination. So what you want is you want your illumination to be consistent across all of the areas that are lighted. So we're going to say it appears to be similar in type with overlapping light pattern coverage in most areas. So you can basically see everything in this case. Okay. The next one is a little bit less. You've got illumination, but there are different things that cause shadows or glares. Next one is illumination appears to be similar and consistent in type. However, light pattern coverage does not overlap. So you've got shadows or dark areas in your illumination. And the illumination appears to be uneven and dissimilar in type, causing glare and shadows with inconsistent coverage in most areas, creating dark areas and shadows. Okay, so again, this is best to worst. So if you've got similar illumination with an overlapping light pattern, you're in good shape. Okay, next thing about the lights. Do they work? Are they in good repair in most areas and there's no burned out bulbs in critical locations? Is it in need of repair or maintenance in most areas? or are they in good area and repair in most areas, but there are burned out bulbs in critical locations? This is a question that doesn't have as much to do with your facility security as much as making sure you're keeping things in good repair. Now, that you might not have the money. If you don't have the money and you got burned out bulbs, that is why this question is asked. A lot of these questions are directly tied to a countermeasure recommendation. And if it turns out that you're not keeping, you don't have the funding to keep your illumination in good repair, that is part of what this assessment is here to identify. So we're going to say it is in good repair. Does the illumination have backup power? I'm going to say yes. As soon as I answer the yes question, it's going to ask, what does it cover? Does it cover most of the existing lighting? Does not cover most of the lighting? Or it really is just emergency illumination? So obviously the best would be your backup power supply just keeps the lights on totally, although sometimes that's an unreasonable request. So really does it cover almost everything, not quite everything, but just an emergency backup lighting? Okay. During special situations, is there portable lighting available on site for either emergencies or heightened threat levels? Sometimes this is also for extra lighting when you are having special events. This is your portable lighting. This is the stuff that might be on a truck. You might roll it out. We're going to say no, we don't have any of them. Now, is the illumination system monitored through a computer workstation? We're going to say yes. Does the illumination system utilize specific software to operate and monitor the system? We're going to say no. Can the illumination system be controlled, operated, and or manipulated from a computer workstation? We're going to say nope. Can the illumination system be remotely controlled? Now, when we're talking remotely controlled, we're not just talking a light switch that is away from the lights. We're talking more with an iPhone, with something wireless. Is it something that you can remote control from off campus, meaning you've got an emergency and you want to turn the lights on, or can somebody off campus turn the lights off? That's really what we mean by remotely controlled here. So we're going to say no. And then special situations, portable lighting available on site for emergency and heightened threat levels. I think I've seen this before, so I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now we are through all of the questions for perimeter security. And you see, there's a lot to perimeter security. These questions all work together with all of the other questions in the other sections to give a really good overview of how your facility is protected. So this concludes perimeter security, and our next section will be on to outdoor areas.